Good morning, everyone. I wanted to really just share a little bit with you this morning about my journey as the founder of this organization that we really feel is doing revolutionary work in introducing girls to coding and technology. And this is a journey that started back in April 2011 and has really literally taken us around the world in terms of introducing girls to code and telling folks why that's important to do. I want to talk a bit today about when girls hack and designing the future of technology for women and girls of color. One of the things that I was recently asked in an interview was a reporter said, well, can you tell me something that your organization has accomplished that made you feel that was their highest achievement? And although, as an organization, we've achieved many things. We've had sponsorships by Google, sponsorships by Microsoft. We've been awarded awards and for doing our work at the White House. And we've just received lots of accolades for this work. When I thought about it, the thing that really made me really feel proud of the work and that this work was really important and I was on the right path was thinking back to this day in December of 2013, when we took 3 girls from our organization that you see here to the Lean Startup Conference to give an Ignite talk, the very first time that the Lean Startup organization had ever even invited youth to come to the Ignite stage. And these 3 girls from our organization, Kai, Charmienne, and Rebecca, spoke about their journey as hackers and being able to attend one of their very first hackathons and creating this app that would really solve a problem in their community. And to see them on the stage amongst hundreds and hundreds of people talking about their work with such confidence and such commitment and with such pride was everything that our organization is about. But to just give you a little bit of how they got to the Ignite stage, I wanted to talk a little bit about that particular hackathon. A few weeks before Kai, Charmienne, and Rebecca went to Ignite, they participated in a youth hackathon that was hosted by another nonprofit organization in the Bay Area called Level Playing Field Institute. And during this youth hackathon, the girls formed a team of 5, looked at all the issues in their surrounding community in Oakland, and decided to create an app that would address the issues related to food bank accessibility. And as you see on the top, that's the work, and for the designers, I'm sure you'll appreciate that the girls actually did to map out everything that they needed to do in this app, every user that it needed to touch, every issue that it needed to address. But not only did they create one fully working and accessible app during those that two-day hackathon experience, they created 2 because they thought, well, food bank app is great. You know, this really solves an issue by connecting folks that want to give away food to food banks that need certain things. But that's not really solving all of the problem. So they went a bit further and created a second app that connected to food bank called Feed Me, that would actually connect consumers that needed certain items to the places where they could find it. So about this time, at the middle of day 1, I'm feeling pretty stoked because I'm a nonprofit founder, but I'm also pretty competitive. And I was like, yes, I put together the dream team. We got it. We're going to win this thing. But things don't always work out as you plan. We like to think that one of the things that probably our girls weren't expecting when they went to this hackathon was that our team of 3 superstar coders were going to have to add 2 people to their team. And that just happened to be 2 boys. So no offense to the men in the room, but because we generally work as girls, and these girls are some of my star coders, they were none too happy about the fact that they had to add boys to the team. But they did, and they worked together well. But when they got to the presentation, there was a little bit of clutch, and they couldn't really present their ideas specifically to the judges. And as a result, they didn't make it to the finals. So I remember vividly at the end of the competition, and as all the teams that were finalists were called up to the stage, and my star player team didn't make the cut, the girls were devastated. So as I'm talking to the girls, and I'm like, you did great, you know, this is amazing work, you should be proud of your accomplishments. It was still just that little thing in their eyes that told me they didn't really feel that they achieved as much as they really wanted to. So when the opportunity came to present at Ignite, we really jumped at that for the girls' sake. And not because there was a prize at the end of the day for them being able to present their ideas, but because what we knew it would do for their self-confidence and their self-esteem and their self-efficacy. And at the end of their presentation at Ignite, in a room about this size and actually maybe a little bit bigger, they received the very first of the night standing ovation. So now, even though I'm the founder of Black Girls Code, was presenting the next day at the Larger Lean Startup Conference, everyone that came up to me in my presentation was asking about the girls and Food Bank and Feed Me. And because of that, and seeing the look on their faces and the look on their parents' faces and the look on the audience faces, it really solidified everything that Black Girls Code is about. Our focus is really to paint a picture of the face of technology that doesn't exist today, to really put a stake in the ground and say that this is something that girls can do, girls of all colors, and so much more. And that's the reason we were founded in 2011. Our focus is really to address one key issue, and that's that women and girls of color are vastly underrepresented in the technology industry and are being left behind by participants in this burgeoning innovation economy. Our mission is a simple one. We want to empower young women of color between the ages of 7 to 17 to embrace this tech marketplace as builders and creators by introducing them to skills in computer programming and technology. And we like to think of ourselves as the Girl Scouts of technology. And we have what we think is a modest goal, but not really. We hope to reach and train 1 million girls of color to code by the year 2040. In just a few short years, we've really launched into this Learn to Code movement as the only organization still of its type with a focus specifically on introducing girls from underrepresented communities to technology. And we sit in between some very awesome partners, some of which I think you're going to hear from Girls Learning Code and their founding members later on today. But our work is specific because it really taps into the issue of the intersectionality between race and gender and how that impacts girls from these underrepresented communities and their openness and acceptance of the ability to go into the technology field. Since we started in 2011, our organization has really experienced some exponential growth. We currently have 7 chapters in the U.S., from places as far as New York City to Memphis, New York, Las Vegas, Detroit, and Chicago. We even have an international chapter in Johannesburg that we launched with our partner, ThoughtWorks Incorporated. And to date, we've reached over 3,000 girls. But why is this work important? I think, speaking to you, I'm sure we're all aware of the dire numbers in terms of women in the field of technology. But this wasn't always the case. I myself am an engineer, and when I graduated in the mid-'80s, you can't really see the bottom of this chart, but the peak is right about 1985 to 1989-ish, where you can see the number of women that were going to college to receive a degree in computer science was almost 40%, 36, 38%. But it's the end of this chart, if you can see the number there, that's about 2004, 2003, the number has plummeted. So the amount of women that are receiving bachelor's degrees in computer science to date is less than 18%. And if we look at women of color, that number is even lower, at maybe 2% for women from African American communities and less than 1% for Latinas and Native American women. So I think the question that we saw in 2011 when we saw this chart and these dire numbers was why in this age of burgeoning economy are women being summarily bypassed as effective creators and leaders in the field of technology? To say that there are issues endemic to society would be something that we all would agree on. When we look at some of the barriers to women in terms of going into the field of technology, and particularly women of color, the statistics say that if you do a survey of girls in middle school, over half of them, and maybe even close to 70%, express an interest in going into technology or a STEM field. This is middle school. But by the time they reach high school, that number plummets to less than 2%. When we look at girls from African American and Latin communities, not only are they having problems like bridging that gap between middle and high school, over 40% of them don't even graduate from high school. But the problems for girls of color and underrepresented communities starts much earlier, because in 3rd to 5th grade, they average about 3 grade levels lower than their counterparts in terms of their proficiency in math and science. When we look at women that actually enter the workplace and even enter the startup field, we see those numbers that we all saw in the recent weeks from Google, from Twitter, from LinkedIn, representing a workforce that's less than 30% women. Now, I'm not sure if everybody looked at those numbers as deeply as we were looking at in our office, but when we looked at those statistics by people of color, the numbers for African American and Latinos in the workforce currently today was summarily about 2 to 3%. That's all, both male and female. So if we're 2 to 3% male and female in the current workforce, when we look at those numbers and dissect those numbers even further for women of color, it's even less. Now, although the statistics themselves paint a very dire picture about the state for women of color in the field of technology, some of the things that touch me even greater and really make me so determined to meet our goal of training girls in technology are really those personal stories that I hear time and time again from women and girls about their experiences and their interest in technology. I remember very vividly a story of one student who went to school at a very prestigious college for engineering in the South, top of her class in high school, coming out of an optional school program in Memphis, Tennessee, and went to her very first class in civil engineering and sat in a room of about 200 students and had the professor ask, well, can you hold up your hand if you received a 4 or 5 on the AP math exam? And in this class of about 200 students, she was the only student that raised her hand. But interestingly, the professor didn't acknowledge her. She de facto became invisible. And this professor went on to talk about something else. Or the experience of another student that just so happens to also be from Memphis, Tennessee, who is now a Rhodes Scholar and studying at Oxford, working on her master's and soon to be working on her PhD in computer science and engineering, went to school at Georgia Tech, started a startup company while she was in college. Excellent student, excellent leader. But when she was in high school and was interested in taking this thing called an AP-CS exam, she went to the teacher and the advisor over the CS department and said, I'm interested in AP-CS. And the teacher said, well, that's great, but I think maybe you'll be more suitable to this CAD class. Why don't you take CAD instead? Student decided to go a different path and told her, no, thank you. Or a recent student, a very smart, bright 9th grader that was interested in going into AP-CS in 10th grader, who after had attended lots and lots of Black Girls Code classes. Very bright, gamer, developer, very interested in going into computer science and expressed an interest to the CS teacher about enrolling in AP-CS. Well, for some reason, her application to get into AP-CS was denied. But when we looked a little bit deeper at the student in the class that were accepted, about 80% of them were boys, and none of them had any CS background or experience. Yet the student who was interested in going into CS and had really gone to the teacher with this background of 2 and 3 years in coding didn't get the same opportunity. So these are some of the biggest barriers that we see: the access denied, the no acceptance allowed messages that we give to girls, that we give to women of color when they express an interest in technology, and they express an aptitude of it, because we think societally that that's just not what girls do. Part of our work is changing that dynamic, changing that thought process, giving everyone an insight into the type of students that could be coders, which is everyone, opening up the field so it is inclusive of all, so that all ideas come to the table. Some of the stories of success I'd like to talk about speak to those few students. The first college student that I spoke about that was a civic class, that was me. The second student I mentioned was a student named Joy, who's from Memphis, Tennessee, and is a Rhodes Scholar going on to study for MIT for a PhD. And the second one that I mentioned was actually my daughter, Kai, which was the first girl on this side of the screen that you saw from the Lean Startup Hackathon. But when we give these same women the confidence and the encouragement and the training to develop these technology skills, they not only soar, they thrive. In this particular slide, you see my daughter, Kai, very young picture, but also as a high school student. Not only does Kai still program and is still very active in design and computer programming, she's also a part of her high school robotics team. When we look at students like Charmienne, who was one of the middle girls in the first slide that I talked about from the competition and the Lean Startup Conference, Charmienne is only 12, but she's been programming since she was 8. Charmienne has an app, and actually she has a couple of apps in the iTunes Store and the Google Play Store, one of them called Doll Finder that she created with the help of her older brothers. And she continues to program as well as have many other interests. Or students like Rebecca. Rebecca was the third student on the slide that I mentioned earlier. Rebecca is determined to be a game developer, and not only has she continued to teach herself many skills such as Ruby on Rails, Python, JavaScript, beyond what we teach in Black Girls Code classes themselves, she even decided to take her mother with her to learn Python. And finally, there's this girl. That girl was actually me, about circa 1970-something. I won't tell you my age. But the point of this is that we never know what girls are capable of until we tell them that they're capable of whatever their hearts desire, and we give them the skills and the encouragement to follow their dreams. Not only maybe they will become a coder, a game designer, a business owner, they may become the leader of a movement. I truly believe that by focusing on removing the barriers that impede women and girls of color from reaching their potential as leaders and creators, we create a cascading effect, which results in opening doors of tech inclusion for all and provides innovative solutions to a plethora of societal issues. I see my role now as both an engineer and a technologist, as not just the maker of things, but as the creator of possibilities. And if I could relive 1,000 more of those moments in December at the Lean Startup competition, I feel completely fulfilled. But I know there's much more work to do and many more lives to change. Our goal for the near future with Black Girls Code is to open 8 more cities and chapters by the end of 2015 and reach 5,000 students. We continue to need help and support of supportive communities like yourself to both step up as volunteers, mentors, sponsors, advocates, and even cheerleaders for this important work. By removing these issues and barriers for women of color, we improve all of their individual lives, lives of communities, and affect the greater good for all. I encourage you all to join the movement and stop telling girls what they can't do and helping them to become what they can. Thank you.